This is episode 14 of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and in this episode, Michael and I discuss Digimon and Pokemon, and which franchise is better in which respect. Welcome back to another episode of the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. I'm Spencer, and I'm back with Michael again for a
Hi,
somewhat
everyone.
controversial topic.
I don't think it's much controversial.
No, but it's one that gets me fired up, and which is going to be interesting because I'm going to show both sides of the coin today. But basically, we're going to be talking about which is better, Pokemon or Digimon. And I will always be an advocate of Digimon, but we're going to break it down more than just one franchise versus another today. But first, as always, you want to start with your recommendation?
Sure, I would love to. So, something that I think should be recommended is Martial Magic and Muscles. It's an anime that is really fun to watch. It's kind of like a what if situation of it's a what if situation of, let's say, everyone at Hogwarts has magical powers, but the protagonist.
Hmm.
But instead, he is stupidly strong.
But
And
he's
I
got a
say,
different superpower.
yeah, I mean, he's just so strong that it looks like he's doing magic, and it's just so funny because one of the great examples of the anime shows his name's Marsh, I believe. And what happens is he joins the Quidditch team,
Or their version
and
of Quidditch.
no, it's full on
Oh,
Quidditch.
it's actually, oh,
So
okay.
this is definitely replicating
They're,
Harry
they're not even trying
Potter.
to, they're not even trying to hide that
They're
they're,
not hiding it.
oh, wow.
Anyway, so he's on the ground because he can't fly. And they're like, hey, you need to help us win the game. So what he does is he jumps up in the air and moves his legs as fast as possible so he stays stationary in the air because he's keeping himself floating in the air by moving his
Someone didn't
legs
skip leg
that
day.
fast. Anyway, it's so fun. It's a great anime. If you just want something to watch and have fun with and not take life seriously, I would suggest this anime.
And you wrote about that one last summer, right?
I just wrote it a couple weeks ago.
Blog post?
Yep.
Oh, no, I'm talking about you did one last summer, Marshall. Harry Potter is an anime now.
Oh, yes.
But I think you also mentioned it in your anime tropes blog post.
It's a great
So
show.
I'll include links to both of those to give people a kind of a more details about the series. On the flip side, the year sounds like a little bit more whimsical. My recommendation is a little more serious or darker tone. The day we're recording this is the day after the Bad Batch season 3, third and final season premiered, and I've only watched the first episode of it now, so far as of recording this, but it's dark, and I mean this is post Clone Wars, early Empire days, and so it's going to be dark, and it's been dark, but I enjoyed the second season more than the first season, so I'm excited to see where the third season goes, even though I kind of expect a tragic ending since I've not seen any of the Bad Batch in any other Star Wars content following this era. Not in Rebels, not in the sequel trilogy, not in the Mandoverse. Like, so we'll see what happens with them. But yeah, I'm excited to watch the other two premiere episodes. And by the time this episode comes out, the season will be half over, I think. So
Let's talk about how Pokemon is better than Digimon. I mean, Digimon is better than Pokemon.
So to keep it from being one franchise versus another, we're actually going to break it down into 5 different parts of the franchise, or different categories that we decided on, and which we deem is better in one franchise or the other. Instead of it just being Pokemon's better than Digimon, or Digimon is a ripoff of Pokemon, or whatever the uneducated say on the topic. So first, the concept and the creatures. So the basic idea of what each franchise is about. And I'm just going to read straight off some excerpts straight off of Wikipedia. So the Pokemon franchise is set in a world in which humans coexist with creatures known as Pokemon. Pokemon Red and Blue contain 151 Pokemon species, with new ones introduced in subsequent games. As of December 2023, 1,025 Pokemon species have been introduced. I did not know that it had gone into quadruple digits, but wow. Not surprised, just wow. Most Pokemon are inspired by real world animals. For example, Pikachu are yellow mouse-like Pokemon with lightning bolt shaped tails. Now, the player takes the role of a Pokemon trainer with 3 primary goals: travel and explore the Pokemon world, discover and catch each Pokemon species to complete the Pokedex, and train a team of up to 6 Pokemon and have them engage in battles. I think that's about all the details we need for the general concept of Pokemon. And as a point of reference, we decided that we wanted to also address when each franchise started. So Pokemon as a franchise, Wikipedia says its original work was Pocket Monsters Red and Pocket Monsters Green, came out in Japan in 1996. On the flip side, Digimon came out with the first digital monster virtual pet, kind of like Tamagotchi, that were more marketed to boys. That came out in 1997. The premise of it depends on each individual continuity, because Digimon is all but like each series, each game is almost considered, at least the first 6 TV series are basically a multiverse, which culminates in this crossover that I wish had been dubbed into English, but that's a side note that we can talk about when we get to the TV shows. But Wikipedia says several media in the franchise are contained within their own continuity. However, they share a similar setting and premise. For instance, most Digimon stories begin with a human child who comes in contact with a Digimon. It generally occurs either through an accidental entrance into the digital world or an encounter with a Digimon who has come into the human world. The child or children often find themselves equipped with a Digivice or some other device that's modeled after the virtual pets, which enables them to empower their partner Digimon. While some Digimon act like wild beasts, there are many who form small societies or follow governing bodies. And they talk. This isn't going away from Wikipedia. Like Digimon talk human languages for the most part, whereas Pokemon, for the most part, can only say their own name, at least in the anime. And then I guess another distinction that the Pokemon Wikipedia page didn't say is that Pokemon evolve based on different circumstances, whether level or experiences or items they encounter. And other than Mega Evolution and possibly Gigantamax, I haven't made it to those games because I don't have a Switch. But except for special circumstances, when a Pokemon evolves, it stays evolved. Whereas a Digimon can go back and forth through its different levels depending on how much energy they have.
Now, I'd like to give you my opinion on what concept I like between that, whether I like the Pokemon concept or the Digimon concept for the creatures.
Go for it.
And honestly, like I think the concept of just having one companion in Digimon is more appealing, uh, than having 100 or 150 Pokemon or 1,000 Pokemon in the games, or just in general, because, you can see that you develop a relationship with that Digimon, at least in the TV shows and, yeah, at least in the TV shows, because you just see Ash always having Pikachu, and there's a reason for that, but then he trades out the other 5 Pokemon consistently. While in
Yeah,
Digimon, you see each companion having 1 Digimon, and then they can evolve or Digivolve, but then they always go back to the base form, while, while in Pokemon, when they evolve, they change physically and they stay evolved and their personalities changes, so they have to redevelop that character again, or that relationship again.
it's like once a powerhouse, always a powerhouse. Uh, but yeah, no, for many reasons, obviously, I shouldn't, I've said many times that I prefer Digimon over Pokemon in most respects. And I think in part because, I mean, it's all, of course, it's all fiction, but Digimon takes place in our world, or at least a parallel world to ours. So our world and the digital world. The events take place in Japan or across the world that are real life places. Whereas in Pokemon, it's all a fantasy world. So I find Digimon more accessible to me as an individual because, oh, I could physically visit some of these places in Japan. Like if in my childhood fantasies, it's like I could theoretically there could be a Digimon that appears to me just like a Digimon appears to any character on the show. Whereas Pokemon, there's no Pokemon, there's no Kanto Johto area of the world where Pokemon exist in our world. It would be a complete fantasy world, like going into Narnia or Middle Earth.
And just to add one more thing, like, realistically, even though they're both fantasies, it would be easier to maintain a Digimon over a Pokemon because you would have more than one Pokemon, but at least in a Digimon world, you just have to feed one.
The only exception to that was like in a couple of the later spin-offs that they created like teams of Digimon instead of but they still had one like base partner. Um, Mikey or Taiki in Digimon Fusion still just had Shoutmon as his base Digimon. Even though he had what was termed an army of Digimon in that series, it was still one base partner Digimon when all was said and done.
So let's continue to the next category that we want to talk about, the music for both franchises. Do you want to start, Spencer?
Well, let's start with theme songs. And honestly, since both series have multiple theme songs, I don't think it's possible for us to say, oh, all the Digimon theme songs are better than all the Pokemon theme songs. So for this one, I just want to put each series against itself. Um, so the best of the Digimon theme songs and the best of the Pokemon theme songs. So I would say, I mean, there's something obviously nostalgic about the original American Digimon uh, theme song. But if we're going past just that series and even the American ones, watching Digimon Adventure Try, I fell in love with the theme song Butterfly, and I have covers of it in English and Spanish and the original in Japanese that I can't understand, but it still is like first pick on my workout playlist. And then for Pokemon, I think the first Pokemon Johto theme song, I mean, that was the first time the world was expanding really, and it was exciting and whimsical and fun. So yeah, I really love that one. How about you?
For me, for Pokemon, I would say it'd be the first theme song that was created because that's the most iconic song. Like everyone still
Nostalgia
to
for the
the
win.
yeah, nostalgic for the win. Everyone that has heard this song can sing it by heart, mostly.
Mhm.
Like
Well, and
everyone can relate.
I'm watching Pokemon X and Y on Hulu right now, and they just the theme song for that one is basically a cover of the original theme song. That's how good it was.
Mhm. It's really good. I think I still remember it. I haven't tried to sing it in years now, but I think it's just something that will always be remembered from my childhood is that theme song.
Mhm.
So I will say that one for Pokemon. And then for Digimon, the one theme song that just keeps popping into my head is from Digimon Frontier.
Well, that's a
The
good one. I'm watching that one right now too.
the other specifically the English dub. I'm not sure how it's different in the sub,
Yeah, I haven't
but
listened to the Japanese theme, but the English one, I think we've talked about this one before. Did you have more to
oh
say about that?
yeah, I thought you had more to say.
No.
Um, so yeah, I just really like the Digimon Frontier because like it could be applied to yourself as well. That's theme song, and it could be a good workout song, and you can see people doing covers of that song on YouTube all over the place. So
Oh yeah.
it could be very applicable to just motivate yourself to become better than who you are.
Yeah. And then as albums or music as a whole, I feel like I kind of have to give it to Digimon on this one. There's only really one, in at least in English, one Digimon soundtrack, and that was from the Digimon movie. Which there are some fans are like, I will still stand by the Digimon movie, partly for nostalgia and partly just, I think it still stands up. Even, I mean, we could have a whole other podcast about the first Digimon movie in America. But the thing I like about it is that other than the Digirap and Hey Digimon, like the songs from it come from like popular artists like Bare Naked Ladies and Smash Mouth. So there are times that I can have music on at work, and all of a sudden there's a song from the Digimon theme song, from the Digimon movie soundtrack playing. So
I honestly forgot about that album. You're right though. That was like iconic, classic music right there.
whereas with Pokemon, like it's Pokemon music. Like there's I guess there's some with the movies that are more popular music, but like the To Be a Master soundtrack from the TV show, it's all about Pokemon. There's no really taking it out of the context of Pokemon for those songs, whereas Digimon is like popular music, and I think they did something right with that.
Well, next we're going to talk about TV shows. And before Spencer gives you his opinion, I just want to share my opinion on the TV shows.
I think everyone
And
knows my opinion at this point on this one.
it's true. Everyone does know. Uh, but when I'm comparing the TV show Digimon versus Pokemon, I would say the one that's slightly better than the other would be Digimon. But honestly, I would say that they both have their positives and minuses. Like I really like I mentioned earlier, the concept of the creatures in Digimon that when they digivolve, they go back they digivolve for the fight and then they go back to their base
Right,
form.
back and forth.
And so you can see a relationship develop through the entire series. And I think overall for like an overall arch or yeah,
The story arc.
the story arc, Digimon's better because it has a beginning and it knows where it wants to end up.
Mm-hmm.
And while Pokemon, the story arc is always Ash trying to get to the new Pokemon League and win, and he always loses until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I mean, you can see them trying to do different things with like the Sun and Moon series, and then I haven't gotten to Pokemon Journeys, but it kind of seems like it's the same thing that they're trying to do something different, but at the same time, it's still Ash, it's still him training a new team of Pokemon, And whereas Digimon, there's a solid beginning, middle, end for each season. Whereas Pokemon went on with just Ash and Pikachu for, I don't even know, 20 something years before they started with their new protagonist recently.
Which I'm kind of excited for. I haven't watched it yet, but I was thinking maybe introducing it to my daughter because it's
Oh yeah.
new characters, new everything.
I
So
mean,
it'd
and
be new to me.
we're both girl dads, so to have a female protagonist for our girls would just be wonderful.
Mhm. And then, but yeah, going back to Digimon, let's see.
I will say that
Yeah,
not every Digimon series is created equally. Some of the later ones I have issues with, like Digimon Fusion, especially the season that never got dubbed of Digimon Fusion. It was basically all filler. There was like up until like the last 6 episodes, it was all one episode story arcs basically. Um,
and the one thing that would bother me about Digimon is that the protagonist, so there's usually Digidestins, and there's could be range from 3 to 5 to 6. And usually one or two of them will take the spotlight the entire
mhm,
time, meaning that their Digimon will face the big bad guy at the very end. And that's typical. And that's probably the only negative I have for Digimon is when that occurs. Like Frontiers is a good example of that.
yeah,
When
Koji and Takuya get all the powers, and the other four literally have no powers,
mm,
while those two are like got their superpowered spirits.
yep. So that's what bothered me about the show. But
When
anyway,
you can especially see that in the Digimon Adventure 2020 reboot, that Matt and Ty got all the spotlight. Heck, they got all the Digivolution sequences, and the others got kind of sidelined for the most part.
which is funny because I believe in the movies, the Digimon Adventure movies where Tai and the game are older, like the other characters got more spotlight.
Oh yeah, the Adventure Tri movies like spread it out so that everyone got some screen time and development.
And when you look at the original series, like oh man, why am I forgetting his name? Uh
Joe, Izzy, TK,
no.
Matt,
DK. Oh, TJ.
TK.
TK. TK got a huge spotlight in this show. Like Agumon was super powerful as Angemon and his
The
later
Patamon was super
evolutions.
powerful of Angemon.
Yeah. Anyway, we're running out of time, so let's continue to the next one. We both
Well,
agreed that
fortunately,
Digimon's a better shit series.
yeah, overall. And fortunately, the next two ones we can talk about pretty quickly. Pokemon and Digimon video games. Um, I'm gonna go with Pokemon as my preference for that, partly because I have limited exposure to Digimon video games, but the ones that I have played were were we'll say subpar, whereas Pokemon has had video games successfully for so many years, and I still play them and I
Mhm.
replay them and just it's but at least although Digimon did have like a Digimon Rumble Arena, I think it was called. It was basically Super Smash Brothers with Digimon. That was
That
great.
sounds fun.
My brother
I
got that
think,
for the GameCube.
yeah, I would have to agree with you that Pokemon as a video game has always been better and superior, and you can tell that like more people are more excited about those video games because it's always advertised when a new Pokemon game comes out. However, I have noticed that the Switch has gotten new Digimon games. I've never played them.
The Cyber Sleuth game is on my list when I get a Switch because it was on I think PlayStation, and I've heard great things about it. I just don't have a Switch.
Yeah. I don't know if it's good. Leave a comment if it's worth playing. Um, but like I think an idea of video game for Digimon would be kind of like a Diablo setting video game, but keep it like
Like
eBay,
open world.
open world, and then you just like get all these materials, and then once you have enough materials, they digivolve for a set amount of time.
Yeah.
and then they go back to the base form, and you choose one character to be as for each dungeon. I think that would be fun.
Okay, final category, the card games. I think just the fact that Pokemon has had the same card game for 20+ years, like since I was in second grade, it's been the same card game. Some of the designs have changed and some of the other things have changed, but the essential mechanics of the game still the same, exactly the same. I could play, I wouldn't win because I don't have very good assortment of cards, but I could play with my Pokemon cards against my 10-year-old nephew, and it'd be the same game. My cards from the 90s, his cards from recent years. Whereas Digimon has gone through 3 different iterations of card games. The first one came out during the first couple years of the franchise and was actually a major player in the plot of Digimon Tamers. It was the same cards. So that was cool. But then when Digimon Frontier came out, there was another card game introduced that went along with the Detector Virtual Pet. And then a few years ago now, there's another Digimon card game that has actually picked up some popularity, but I have no one to play it with, so I've had no reason to collect any of the cards. But just the fact that Pokemon has had that stability for 20+ years, I think says something about how good their card game is.
Especially during COVID, when Pokemon became very popular again. Oh, at least the card game became very popular, that there was like no Pokemon cards in any stores.
See, I didn't even know about that, so that's cool to me.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like people were selling their Pokemon cards online for a lot of money, just because people had nostalgia for Pokemon.
Any final thoughts before we sign off?
So yeah, as you can tell, that like Digimon, we both agree that we like Digimon more than Pokemon, but it doesn't mean that Pokemon
I
is
mean, like you said,
unsuccessful.
it's like by a small margin, because there are
Yeah, it's a
certain
very
parts of the
small margin.
franchise that we enjoy more with Pokemon, but overall, franchise as a whole, I think Digimon has held up for us.
And our last podcast we did together, we talked about when we should introduce Pokemon to our children. And so I'm curious, when should I start watching the new Pokemon series with my daughter? Leave a comment below.
Yeah,
Let it be known.
yeah. When should we start? Anyone who's watched the new Pokemon series, when's a good age to start? Because my daughter's probably gonna watch it as soon as I get there, so who knows? All right. I was trying to think of a good Digimon catchphrase to sign us off, but I'll just go with a line from the rival Blue. Smell you later. Thanks for listening to the Latter-day Saint Geeks podcast. Intro and outro music was provided by David Schradell. You can follow us on most social media platforms, including Facebook and Instagram. You can follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.